getting in a boat and crossing the other side of the lake might offer him that brief moment of relief, a time to recharge his batteries. But as we see in Mark chapter 4, well, other people got into boats and followed him anyway. But at least this trip to the other side will give him some rest. Since they had some time before they got to the other side of Galilee, Jesus decides to take what most of us would do after a long, exhausting, tiring day in front of people, which is to go and take a nap. Naps are fantastic. And so there he is, asleep in the stern of the boat on the cushion. This is the only time he could have rested. But unfortunately, it was a short time because a sudden storm had appeared. One that was fiercer than normal, one that the experienced fishermen of the disciples could not handle, despite their valiant efforts. And yet, Jesus slept through the storm. Have you ever been so tired that you slept through something which should have woken you up? I remember when my freshman year at Central, there was a powerful storm moved through the area one night, but I was so tired from studying and from getting in late from a soccer game on the bus that we didn't get in until like 2 or 3 in the morning. I crashed in bed. I was so tired, I just crashed. And so the next morning I woke up and go to breakfast, and the campus was abuzz with everyone talking about something that had happened that night. And so I was curious, and I was like, why is everybody so excited? What is everybody talking about? And so I learned that lightning had actually struck the science hall in the middle of campus and resulted in a large boom. You can only imagine how loud that sound must have been. Several of the windows in the nearby dorm were cracked because of the force of the sound. And the dorm I was living in at the time, it was only a few hundred yards away, so it would have been extremely loud. Everyone woke up. Even my roommate said he heard it. But yet, I was so sound asleep that I knew nothing had happened. I didn't know what had gone on. So this is very much like what Jesus must have been like. So tired, so exhausted from everything that he had done that he just didn't wake up as the boat began to fill and the storm raged. Just to understand how tired Jesus must have been, all you have to do is go back to Matthew to kind of get a sense of what Jesus was doing. In Matthew 5 through 7, as Pat read for us this morning a little bit of the Beatitudes, Jesus climbed on the mountainside and delivers the Sermon on the Mount. He teaches the crowds. Then in Matthew 8, we see Jesus come down the mountain. The crowds are still pressed in around him, and they continue to follow him. He continues to heal some lepers that come requesting healing. Then we hear of messengers coming from a Roman centurion, arriving requesting that a trusted servant be healed. Then we probably get to the busiest part before Jesus hops in this boat in Matthew 8, 14 through 17. We see first Jesus heals Peter's mother-in-law. And then he goes and he starts casting out spirits. And then he heals many others who are brought to him of their sicknesses. So Jesus was a busy man. We all now understand why Jesus probably wanted to get in the boat and get away. Jesus needed to recharge and needed a way to get away. So what better way to hop into a boat and sail to the other side hoping that he could get a break? Might take the crowd some time to get around the sea to where they were going. But yet, even when he is exhausted and fatigued, when the disciples are fearful that they're going to lose their lives, and they need him, and they wake him up, even though he is tired, he stands up, he rebukes the wind and the waves, and he says to the sea, "Peace, be still." And it is. The phrase that Jesus used in Greek means to be muzzled, to be silent. This is the moment which, despite all of his weariness, Jesus still spoke with a power and authority. He spoke as one who was strangely calm concerning the situation raging around him. People panicking, people yelling things to do. And yet he still spoke with such authority that nature obeyed his command. All of creation in this moment that Jesus spoke recognized its creator and was obedient. As the psalmist says in Psalm 89:9, "You rule over the surging sea. When its waves mount up, you still them." Or in Psalm 93:4, "Mightier than the thunder of the great waves, mightier than the breakers of the sea, the Lord Almighty is, the Lord on high is mighty." This is a big moment. The story should have immediately changed. Even the disciples said, "Who is this, that even the seas and the winds obey him?" This should have been abundantly clear to those who had been following him at this point, that Christ had been given authority by God. That Christ was the Son of God. That the Creator was commanding creation just by expressing his voice for it to be muzzled, to be still. And the wind and the waves obeyed him. This is a moment when creation recognized the Creator. And yet the disciples still did not see who he was. Still struggled to figure out what was going on. So then after Jesus calms the wind and the wave, after this display of power and of authority, Jesus asked the disciples, "Why are you so afraid? Have you still no faith?" Mark records that the disciples were filled with great fear. They were terrified. There are two kinds of fear on display in this passage of Scripture. The first is the fear of the known. That is, there are things which we know about and are afraid of. I am very afraid of heights. Mostly because of what happens when somebody who falls. You get hurt. So obviously the higher up I go, the more nervous I get, because the injuries seem less and less, and death seems more higher chance. I even have a coworker who is deathly afraid of sharks.